Mhm.
What's his
Yeah, he
view?
said the same. He said the same thing. I don't believe, and he doesn't believe that there are kids because you don't yank around and use alleged children as pawns. Kind of more curious as to why they're not being seen with these children. Like
Mm.
they're jet setting, they're apart one day, they're together, they're going to this event or to that event. Most celebrities, if there are children involved, it doesn't seem like they're having a normal life. And it seems like it's very far from a fairy tale for the world and for them. So I mean, I can't wait to find out. My guess is as good as yours.
There's obviously Sam's.
They kept saying the same thing, and it stuck like a splinter. He didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. The idea that children, real,
I thought, gee, if
living,
she was,
breathing
remember
children,
when Jimmy
were being
Moore did that
paraded or
beautiful
hidden
thing
like
on
props in a carefully
Vanity Fair
staged
where she
play felt
showed her beautiful
impossible,
belly?
even obscene. You don't dangle kids like chess pieces to win a PR match. And yet the more you looked, the more it all felt off. One day together, the next day apart. Jet here, gala there. A smile for
first, second in the line of succession. So they're not in the same sort of, category when it comes to the level of seriousness around
cameras, a glare for headlines, and always that lingering question, where are the children in all of this? Not glimpses of a normal life, not the messy bits every parent knows, but a curated haze, too perfect to be real, too neat to exhale. That's when the fairy tale began to look less like a storybook and more like a script, edited, rehearsed, res hot. The image was immaculate. Meghan, the glowing mother, the defiant duchess, the modern icon who walked into 1,000 years of tradition and made it blink first.
Out a press release that isn't clear, that makes it sound like Meghan just went into labor when really Archie had been born for several hours at that point, is a foolish game to play, and it only diminished.
A woman of conviction, grace, and clipped consonants, forever backlit by flashbulbs and the warm hum of admiration. But what happens if the glow is floodlighting, the warmth of projector, and the applause? Well, just part of the soundstage. What if the carefully crafted persona wasn't simply polished, but engineered? Samantha Markle didn't creep into that question. She detonated it. She didn't ask the world to reconsider the fairy tale. She alleged it was a facade, a bespoke reality stitched from PR, posture, and strategic silence. In her telling, the public Meghan, the smiling figure on glossy covers, delivering lines about empowerment, compassion, and resilience, wasn't just a refined version of the private woman. She was a character. And everything from the timing of a press release to the choreography of a maternity photo became part of the performance. Remember the announcement that said labor had begun, only for the baby to have already arrived hours earlier? The mismatch wasn't just confusing. It was, in Samantha's account, a clue. If that's the roadmap, then motherhood sits at the center of the maze. The bump, the cradle, the hand on the belly that says, I am both woman and miracle. Samantha's most incendiary claim is that even this, especially this, was theater. Not a joyful secrecy, but a calculated veil. She paints a picture of a woman who, piece by piece, rewrote her personal history, edited out the inconvenient relatives, and recast herself in a role that guaranteed attention and sympathy. The outsider who did the impossible and won. In that version of events, the Duchess didn't merely manage an image. She weaponized it. Then came the whisper with a name, DL. Not a column, not a blind item, but a person, at least as the story goes, willing to say she was the one who carried the weight and the heartbeat. DL's claims are lined with the kind of details that make skeptics squint. Meetings behind tinted glass. Contracts that hissed with confidentiality. Days that blurred into weeks of isolation while the other woman faced cameras, gowns, and the glow of applause. DL talks about the real costs, the ones that don't photograph well, the medical bills, the fatigue, the postpartum ache that doesn't care who's famous and who isn't. If her story holds even a fraction of truth, then the distance between reality and presentation wasn't a gap, it was a canyon. That is where the silence begins to sound like thunder. In moments like these, public figures will out the template. Swift denial, documentation, a clean precision that cuts rumor at the root. But here, there was none of that, No crisp statement, no open ledger of timelines and certificates. A vacuum formed, and vacuums don't stay quiet, they roar. The longer nothing was said, the louder the questions became. If this is all smoke, why not open the windows? If it's slander, why not drop the paperwork like a gavel? Every day of quiet began to look less like dignity and more like strategy. The palace machine, ancient, ritualized, obsessed with paperwork and precedent, makes births into ceremonies of proof. Steps on hospital stairs. Posed photographs. Witness timings. There is a reason for all of it. When the story departs from the script, tradition doesn't yawn. It bristles. Royal watchers who once sighed at modern flourishes suddenly reached for the rulebook. The timelines were inspected. Images were zoomed. A hand on a belly became not just a tender gesture, but a Rorschach test. What do you see, and what do you want to see? Samantha's narrative insists there was a casting call where a family should have been. Not just estrangement, but erasure. Siblings and cousins rewritten into white space while the spotlight never wavered. If that's true, then the question isn't simply whether a mother chose privacy, it's whether a legend demanded it. DL's account sharpens the edge. The idea that while one woman perfected the performance of pregnancy, another did the quiet, private work of carrying the children, without credit, without acknowledgement, without daylight. Here's the cruel part about modern myth-making. It only takes a few hairline fractures for the entire facade to look like fragile glass. Polls and comment sections began to shift. Adoration made room for doubt. The very interviews and documentaries that once seemed like cathedral windows into the soul suddenly looked like mirrors angled to reflect a preferred truth. Each smile became a line reading. Each red carpet a scene. Each authentic moment, a close-up with perfect lighting, and yet the human ache inside the spectacle won't leave the room. Because if DL is fabricating, we are watching reputations be shredded in the gears of gossip. But if DL is telling the truth, we are watching a different kind of theft, the invisibility of a woman who endured the private storm for a public fairy tale. Either way, the children, whose names and futures were embroidered into centuries of tradition, become the softest targets of the loudest arguments. They didn't ask to be symbols. They didn't ask to be proof. Silence persists, and silence has a way of turning speculation into architecture. Social media threads become investigative mosaics. Dates here, photographs there, a press release pinned to a timestamp like a butterfly under glass. Every deviation from protocol registers like a siren. Why this hospital and not that one? Why those words and not the others? Why the staggered announcements? Why the distance from the rituals that every royal mother before tolerated, loathed, or embraced, but completed? Inside the partnership, the pressure must hum like electricity. A brand built on candor, vulnerability, and modern defiance now finds itself cornered by the very currency it spent: narrative control. Do you speak and feed the fire? Do you refuse and confirm suspicions by omission? The calculus is brutal. Even the smiles look weighted now, as if each one costs something, and the institution, steady, ceremonial, allergic to ambiguity, does not love improvisation. It tolerates novelty when novelty obeys the rules. When it doesn't, the murmurs start to sound like machinery grinding. Lineage is not a story you tell, it's a record you keep. If DL's claims are even partly right, then the issue isn't celebrity or envy or culture wars. It's paperwork. It's protocol. It's the difference between a narrative that dazzles and a lineage that endures. Meanwhile, the audience has changed. We used to consume pageantry like sugar. Now we autopsy it. We pause, zoom, slow mo, and annotate. Influencers become archivists. Commenters become amateur counsel for the court of public opinion. A bump becomes a battleground. A timeline becomes a trial. You can feel the collective temperature dropping, from enchantment to curiosity to suspicion. That's the arc. That's the gravity. And still, there is that first stubborn instinct. You don't use children as pawns. You don't turn motherhood into a mask. If the allegations are baseless, the fix is simple and surgical: transparency. If they aren't, the fallout isn't a tabloid feast. It's a constitutional hangover. Either way, the cost of silence grows daily interest as we wait, because that's what the public does between revelations. We wait and we scroll and we stitch together fragments into theories that feel like answers. Samantha keeps talking. DL's story refuses to evaporate. Insiders leak. Outsiders speculate. The machine groans. The lights burn hot. And in the center stands the figure who once mastered the room with a look and a line, now forced to face a question no spotlight can soften. Was the life we were sold the life that was lived?